Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker podcast, bringing you fun and soulful interviews with spiritual teachers with the aim of tuning you in and lighting you up. You can access all episodes of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos and interviews all about finding and following your life purpose. My name is George Lizas. I'm a spiritual teacher, intuitive, the author of Be the Guru and the #1 best-selling Lightworkers Gotta Work. And today I have with me Nicky Clinch. Nicky Clinch is a master maturation coach and facilitator, integrative holistic counselor, author, and host of the Soul Surgery podcast. She has dedicated the past 2 decades to healing her own self from multiple addictions and childhood and ancestral trauma. She has trained in Macrobiotics, Oriental Medicine, 5 elements theory, energy healing alignment, breathwork, and ontological inquiry, and understands the capability of the mind, memory, survival, and our ability to generate our reality. Nicky has lived and experienced everything she teaches. She guides people through powerful processes to break free from the stories and wounds that are confining them from the past, to embody their authentic self and live with a deeper sense of alignment, wholeness, and freedom. Nicky, welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I feel really, really excited to be here. And it's always amazing to hear all of that. I'm like, wow, is that me?
I feel the same way when I'm on other people's podcasts and I hear it back. I'm like, okay, yes, I've done that. I'm so excited to chat about your new book. As I was telling you before we started, surrendering has been one of my biggest lessons to learn. I feel that these worlds, like patriarchy is so ingrained in the way we do things. The abuse of the masculine energy is so ingrained that we sort of have to teach ourselves how to be more feminine and therefore how to surrender into the healing work, into ourselves, into life, into love. Whereas it should have be natural for us because that's who we truly are. So I'm so excited to dive into the processes in the book and all that you've created for people. So before we get into all of that, let's start with, let's go back to the basics. Why did you want to write this book? What was the intention behind it? And what was your own story of learning to surrender?
So it's a really interesting story around the book because I was signed to write another book. I was signed by Hay House to write another book called The Warrior Woman Book. And my whole brand was based on teaching women to be the warrior women in their world. And I had become relatively successful. I mean, I got a book deal for it, lots of Instagram followers. I had clients. I'd been doing it for many years. And then, I was functioning. I was doing well. That I could have probably got away with it for another 20, 30, 40 years. And I probably would have helped a lot of people. But about 2 weeks after I got signed for the book, I got an invitation to go out to the Amazon jungle to train with Gabo Mate and to do a 2-week plant medicine alignment retreat. And he was pulling in health leaders and health professionals from all over the world, 23 people, to go into the jungle to work with ayahuasca and work with ontological inquiry to really listen to what Mother Earth needed from us, so we could go out into the world. And there were 300 applications. I happened to be someone that got accepted. So I found myself on a plane, and I ended up in the middle of the jungle. On my second day there, the facilitator, not Gabor, but another facilitator said, you can't be a little bit in alignment. You're either all in alignment or you're not in alignment. And he started to speak about integrity. And he started to really speak about, who are you being in your work? Is it the same one that you're being in your marriage? Is it the same one that you're being with the man at the shop in the corner, or the bus driver? Who are you being in all these areas? And it just felt like someone kicked me in the stomach, because I started to see something about who I had been being that I didn't want to see before. And I realized that in my work and in the clients and in the way that I showed up in the world, it was very much in alignment with my purpose here and what my values are. But when I got really honest with myself, what was happening inside my marriage was not that. And I started to really see something like like a blind spot opening, realizing that this warrior woman character that had been leading my life, and kind of overriding my life and really getting in the way of intimacy and with my marriage and connection, and just kind of taking center stage, was really a character that had been led by my past. It was my way of surviving in the world so that I didn't have to repeat the trauma that I had as a 4-year-old girl. If I'm strong and I'm in control and I've got it together and I've got all the answers, well, then I'm going to be able to be okay. And even though the world celebrated me in that way, it was led by trauma. It was led by pain. It was led by fear. And after 2 weeks of that retreat, I realized that it was all a facade. It was an unconscious facade. And so it started to crumble. And I came home from that retreat and I started to really take actions about alignment, really coming into alignment. My marriage ended. I ended my marriage. And with that, the warrior woman ended too. I even, I stopped calling it had no connections to my brand anymore. And I had written 50,000 words of the warrior woman book. And every word I was writing felt wrong. I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. But I was like, oh my God, Hay House have signed me. I've got to write this book. And so I sat opposite my editor and I just said, this isn't the book I was meant to write. And I just started crying. And she looked at me and she said, you are clearly going through a metamorphosis. She said, throw it out. All I care about is that you write the book you were born to write. Throw it out. Let's push your pub date back. Let's get rid of the title. Like let's really just get rid of it and see what comes. And I came off that call. I mean, what editor ever does that? I mean, seriously. And I came off that call and I cried all night. And I was like, what am I going to do? And the next morning I was in meditation and I swear on my life, I was meditating and the entire outline for this book came through. Just like, woo. And within a week, I presented a new pitch. And my editor looked at it and she was like, where did this come from? And I was like, this is it. This is the one. And I just started writing it and every word just felt right. And my marriage had ended. The warrior woman had ended. So I was living the process as I was writing it. And surrender was just what I had to keep doing, surrendering every bit of programming and conditioning that I had absorbed, thinking that that's who I had to be in the world in order to belong, in order to be strong, in order to survive, surrendering ideas and pictures around what marriage is or what love is, surrendering around what it is to be powerful, to be strong, to trust. And so when I finished, and I didn't have a title, and then I kept writing it and we got to the end and they said, well, what is it called? And I was like, this is called Surrender. And that was it. That was the birth of this book that I was
Oh
never
my
meant to
God.
write.
Oh my God. I was just so hooked into the story because it hit home for me, because I related to a great degree. I had a kind of a, well, not as intense of an awakening, but like a realization last year when I did a poll on Instagram stories and I asked my audience, which which Hogwarts house do you believe that I belong into? And like 90% of people said Hufflepuff. I don't even know about Harry Potter, but I'm a Slytherin, which is the exact opposite of what Hufflepuff is. Like Hufflepuffs are just positive, happy. They're very loyal. They're very approachable. They're very like loyal, good people. And I am that person as well. This is what I show online. But also I have this leader inside that's ambitious, that I'm a go-getter, that I'm going to show up. Sometimes I can be a little bit aggressive. So I have that part of myself as well. And I'm like, oh my God, I have only been showing that side of myself in my online persona, forgetting that I am way more than that. Just because I felt that's what people expected and that's what I had to do. And it was from that point onwards that I also had this realization, you know what? I think I should start embracing my Slytherin side a little bit more and share more of myself online. And it really paid off. So thank you so much for sharing this story. And I think so many people will relate because we live in this culture where everything is curated. Everything has to be beautiful. Everything has to be a certain way. You have to niche yourself. The riches are in the niches, like, you know, all this programming and conditioning we're being taught. So it's truly liberating to fully embrace who you are and share that unapologetically. And thank you so much for writing Surrender. So let's define surrender from your perspective. What does it mean to surrender?
It means to release. It means to let go. You know, there's sort of 3 layers to it that I like to talk about on a surface level, and it's not really surface level, meaning it's not meaningful, but on the kind of outward level, surrender is releasing the grip, releasing the tight hold to perceived control, the illusion of control, the illusion that we are the ones that are driving this show. And whatever we're trying to lead from that place, pushing, forcing, grasping, gripping survival is led by fear. That actually, how much can we release that grip and allow flow and allow life to flow, and to lead us rather than our will leading us? Then on a deeper level, and it does go deeper, you know, the nature of the human mind is to survive. That's universal. That goes across everyone in this species, that it is the design function of our mind is to survive. And so what does the mind do if that's what it needs? Its job is to help us survive. It focuses on all the possible points of threat that it can possibly, you know, scan through from all the information that we've absorbed from the past. And so led by that, the nature of human being is we get stuck in survival. We get stuck in these patterns of survival led by the past, led by the threats and the fears and the pain of our past that continue living our present. And so on a deeper level, and 100% of human suffering is not from the human experience, but from our resistance of the human experience. And so surrender is releasing the resistance. All the million billion ways that we resist, you know, that we try to escape, run away, cover up, hide, don't tell the truth, micromanage, is to release that resistance. And why? Because who we all truly are is everything, nothing. We are life itself. We are whole. Everything else that we are carrying, we've absorbed. We've inherited, we've attached to, we've been conditioned. And so, you know, our deepest transformation, our deepest maturation is in what are we ready and willing to release. And the more that we're able to release that is not who we are, the more of the aliveness and the truth of who we were born to be can come through. And so, in the very moment that we let something go, something can birth. And for me, that is the deeper sense of what surrender means.
How beautiful. And I know in the book you talk about the 3 parts: ending, love, and birthing. And therefore, we're talking about the past, the transformation, and then moving forward and surrendering in every step of the process. So let's start through this process. How do we start surrendering the past hurts, the traumas, and the limiting beliefs we have?
Well, I think the first place that I like to look at with anybody who works with me is to look at what your problems are. You know, we all have these problems that we're trying to fix and solve and get rid of, and we're kind of living in a way that we're trying to find the answer to get rid of them. But actually the problem is the way in. The problem is what is giving us the information. So where in your life is repeating itself? Doesn't matter how many times you try to change. You change your hair, you change your body, you change your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Same pattern keeps coming back. The same experience of yourself in the world. So look at what the biggest central problem is in your life, and see the repetitiveness of it. Now, if there is a repetitiveness of it, then that is a sign that something is looping from your past. And so that is the way in. And I begin with a chapter called The Beginning of the End. Why? Because anybody who's ready to really come into their awakening, usually something is coming to an end. Either a behavior, a pattern, a relationship that used to work, but it's just not it doesn't function the way it used to. Um, and so really starting to look deeply at these repeated patterns that are showing up in your life, rather than life happening to you, making them happen. What is it inside of you that is repeating itself? And that is kind of the deeper sense of starting to look at what is it that you're attached to. What are the ideas? What are the beliefs? I hear it all the time when I work with people, when they realize just at this first stage of inquiry within themselves, they're like, whoa, that's not even my voice in my own head. Like, that's my dad's voice. Like, and I've been living it thinking it's my life. What is it that you can start to see from that is there from your past? And in that inquiry, you'll see what you were able to let go of. And so, there are many layers to it. I walk you through it step by step. It's usually quite deep. But the beginning of it is looking at what needs to come to an end.
And just being like investigators of our own issues, what's
Exactly.
coming up, rather than just being in denial of them. I think we're just so used to just ignoring things and being in denial and over spiritualizing them and saying, oh, it's fine, like all is well in my world, and just ignoring what comes up. So it's just a matter of identifying it and then doing the inquiry of asking questions and getting deeper and deeper and deeper and understanding what's at the core. And then we reach the point where we've done that. We've identified like all the traumas and the limiting beliefs, and then we went through the processes you share in the book to surrender them. Then there comes a process of starting to create new beliefs, which sometimes it's harder because it's easy to break down, but when it comes to like creating something new, the resistance of the past comes in to interfere with the new beliefs we introduce. So how do we surrender into that?
So, that's why I wrote the middle section is called love. Why? And by the way, it's very unlikely that you're going to go through this process in a black and white way. You're not going to identify all the beliefs and then get rid of them and then come to the next phase. It usually will be happening. It's like one story goes and then another one goes and then another one goes. And it's a continuous process. And actually, really, it's a way to live your life. It's a new kind of relationship to have with life and with yourself, is to be in this constant evolution, this constant growth, and this constant inquiry, just for everyone to understand.
Yeah, like what I say as well is that the inner work is like an onion. You keep peeling and peeling and peeling off the layers, and there's another layer and another layer and another layer.
Absolutely. And you know what? After a while, it becomes a very beautiful way to live in the world,
I agree.
because then you'll constantly have an opportunity to grow again and to grow again and to grow again. And that, like, why would we want to stop that? It's just where it's limitless. So, once you've seen a story or a belief or something that's been really living your life that you've been attached to, and you start to go through the process of releasing it, often, and this is important for everyone to hear, you'll hit a phase where you don't know who you are anymore, or you feel lost and it feels empty, because you're so used to having that story. You're so used to identifying with yourself in that old way. And when it goes, you're just like, whoa, what's left? Like, who am I now? What do I do with this? Now, in that phase, that is the point where love comes in. We need to start building new foundations that can create a sense of internal safety for ourselves, that we can learn to trust ourselves, that we learn how to listen to a deeper part of ourselves rather than this noise of the mind. And so the whole middle phase of the book is based on love. And I don't mean like just being loving to yourself surface level, but building a foundation that is love, like boundaries, um, telling the truth about yourself and to others, compassion, forgiveness. Who are you blaming and not being what are you not being responsible for? Coming out of victimhood and really owning your power. This is the kind of foundation that we need for us to feel so safe in ourselves and so trusting in ourselves that we're like creating fertile soil that anything can grow. We're not reliant on outside things to give us our worth, that we create that for ourselves. So that for me is an important and fundamental step. Once we start releasing, that we can create that safety for ourselves, so that from then onwards anything can grow.
Yeah, essentially create support for ourselves, because as you said,
Yes.
it feels empty when you've just released so much and you've uh,
Yes.
brought down so many aspects of yourself that you realize were not really parts of yourself. It was just conditioning, and then it feels
Yeah.
scary. So it's so important to have this toolkit and this support, as you just said, to really support the process of changing. And then becomes the birthing. That's the third part of the book, which is
Yes.
all about moving forward after you've done a lot of the work. I mean, it's continuous, as you've just said, of embracing and creating new habits and expanding into the future. Now, how do you surrender to, because I feel this part is very different from the first part, which is all about the past. This is about the future. So it's you moving into the future and stepping into a bigger vision of yourself. So how can we surrender into a bigger vision of ourselves when we've had and we've bought into such a limited perception of ourselves in the past? How do we accept more?
Well, I mean, I think that the important part of that is trust, is that, and that takes time to really create that solid trust in ourselves and in life. But I think, I write about it a chapter in the book where I speak about the our ability as human beings to be able to stand in the space beyond story whilst still having a story. Like we'll still have the same, old repeated thoughts going around in the mind. Maybe we'll have the same kind of familiar emotions that move through the body. It's not that we want to extract that old version of ourselves, but to change our relationship to it so that we don't get led by it. It doesn't take our power, that we can still have these emotions move through us and we can feel them, but we don't get lost in them. That the mind can still think the thoughts still go through your mind, but we don't identify with them. And that is a completely new space to stand in. And from that place, I speak about learning how to listen to life, how to be led by that listening. Listening is something that most of us don't get educated. We get educated on how to talk and what to say, but very little on listening. And real listening, and this is important for everyone to hear, real listening can only truly be listening if we do not know what's coming next. If you already know what's coming next, that's projection. How
Oh,
many
that's
times?
powerful.
Yeah. How many times have you been in a conversation with your partner or something, and you already have decided what you're going to say next, and so you're not even listening anymore? You're not really listening. Real listening is when we do not know what's coming next, and to be able to be in that very active relationship with life and with the present moment. That is real listening. And from that space, very often, like when the book came to me, we hear creative insight. we hear vision, we hear guidance, we hear what the next steps are. And that is when we become in like this co-creative state with the present moment, with life. We're not led by this kind of always already projected ideas of who we should be. We start to have a different relationship with life. And from there, you know, gosh, new possibilities just get born in the present. So this isn't
Wow.
about becoming a bigger, better version of yourself. This is about changing your relationship with yourself, but also with life.
So it's about not getting triggered essentially and just recognizing what comes up and having a different relationship with it.
Yes, I mean, I write about it in the book. I write about the mind, and I write about our relationship with our emotions. You know, both we will continuously have thoughts
Mm.
and we will continuously have feelings. Did you
Mm.
know that our mind will have 80,000 thoughts that cross the mind every 24 hours? That is a lot of thoughts.
It is.
80,000 thoughts. And 80% of them are usually negative because the nature of the mind is to help us survive. So it's looking, scanning for all threats. Now, if we're identifying with all of that, then we're being led in our life like a washing machine and like a leaf being thrown around in a storm. What I write about in the book is about shifting our relationship to the mind. You know, most of us have been educated on what to think from the moment that we have a brain, an active brain and an active mind, and we go to kindergarten and even younger, we're taught what to think. But very rarely are we educated on how to think, on how to have a relationship with the mind and how to have a relationship with emotions. And this is what I write about in the book, not getting rid of them, but shifting our relationship to them. So yes, so that when we get triggered, we have conscious awareness over what is actually not just what is moving through us, but where it might have come from. That where it right now in this trigger is my past projecting in how I'm seeing my present. And consciousness is our superpower. We are the only animal in the animal kingdom that has this self reflecting mind, which means that we have this ability to self inquire. We have the ability to watch ourselves thinking. You know, when you're meditating and then you see yourself and you see, and then you're like, who is it the one that's seeing? And then it's like, oh, who's the one that's seeing that? We're the only animal in the animal kingdom that has that ability, which means that we also have this ability to evolve in consciousness. So when we can truly, with consciousness, see, wow, look at this trigger again. There's the same feelings I always get. It's like an absolute repeat of my experience with my mom. And you have consciousness that it's projecting into your present, then we have an ability to change our relationship with how that affects our life. You know, that's how I transform my marriage. That's what I wrote about in the book. My husband didn't become a different person, but he started to appear to me differently because my past wasn't like getting in the way.
Wow, I love the flow of the book. I love how it starts from the past and it's a never ending journey of transformation. And if there was a single practical tool that you could give people that they could apply at any point of their journey, whatever it is, whatever phase they are on their journey to surrendering, what would that surrendering tool or process or practice be?
Well, there's two, if I can,
Yes, of course.
because they kind of come hand in hand. And one is for the mind, and one is for the body, because they're not separate. The body and the mind are really one. They're two sides of the same coin, and we need to work with them together to really have integrated transformation. And so, for the mind, is to keep being in an inquiry, be willing to question what is showing itself. You know, I write about it in the book. Ask yourself, is what I'm thinking really true? Do I really know this for certain? It may feel like you do, but do you really? If you're really willing to be in an inquiry continuous inquiry, that opens up a whole nother set of possibilities and dialogue and relationship with how you see things. It can be simple from, my husband is making that face again. He must not love me. Do I know that for certain? Do I really know that for certain? And then with the body, this is a hard one for the modern life, slowing down, really slowing down. We're
Yeah.
moving so fast that we're missing the experience of life. And we need to be in our bodies to be in the present. So slowing down, whether you want to go for a walk slowly or whether you want to do some yoga, but do it slowly, practicing slowing down so that you can be in the present moment with your body.
I love the integrative approach that you talk about mind, you talk about emotions, you talk about spirituality, you talk about the body as well. The body is something I'm discovering these days as well, because I'm not a person that slowed down, and now I'm trying to step into that more. And just a quick story, I started flexibility classes and I realized how rigid I am. And then I made connections with the rigidity of different muscles in my body and the different chakras. And then I realized that those chakras and those parts of my body where I was more rigid and inflexible, they hold all the hurts and all the traumas and all the limiting beliefs. And the more work I've been doing to become more flexible, the more easily I found myself navigating through my emotions, navigating through my hurts and limiting beliefs, and just letting them go so much more easily than I would do, for example, if I was just focusing on a cognitive process or just focusing on an emotional process. So it's beautiful how you blend together all these different integrative approaches to help people surrender. Nicky, oh my goodness, thank you. Yeah, do you want to add something on that?
I just wanted to say, the body has habitual patterns too. So the body will habitually hold on to the same anger that keeps coming up around, I don't know, betrayal or not being given attention. And maybe it'll always show up in your stomach, or maybe it'll always show up in your neck. Like the body has habits too, and it holds memory. So when we're willing to really deepen our relationship with the body, I've literally been in the middle of an argument with my husband, convinced that he's doing things a certain way. And I've actually taken myself away, and I've gone and done like half an hour of body work. And I have come back and my whole reality looks different to me. Yeah. So that's important for everyone to know.
And sometimes it's also like slowing down on reacting to different situations and just taking some time off to do some work and just let our perception shift. Oh my goodness, absolutely. What a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for writing this book, and thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Can you please let people know where they can get in touch with you and where they can get the book from?
Okay, so Surrender is now available everywhere that sells books, all over the world. But you can go to my website, www.nickyclinch.com. And we have a whole page there that you can buy the book. And it has all the different places all over the world that you can do that. Also on my website, you will see multiple options for your own maturation. We offer many programs, workshops, transformational workshops, and I also mentor people. Or you can follow me on Instagram, Nicky_Clinch. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. I hope to hear from you.
Yes, and of course, all the links will be added to the show notes below. Thank you so much, Nicky, for coming onto the podcast. Wishing you a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.